This is my randomology, and today we're going back down the rabbit hole, which, given my memories of this movie, is really more of an asshole. I really did not want to watch these next two movies. I really didn't. I have no good memories of the Matrix sequels. I just remember being annoyed while I was watching them. But I watched the first one, and the part 4 is coming out. So in order to be completionist, I guess I'll watch the rest of them. Plus, my wife suggested that I call this set NEOvember. I wish I thought of that. Anyway, yeah, nothing really to say here. I remember being excited when the trailer came out. It looked so cool. It was, I think, my first year in college. And then I saw it, and I was left with an emptiness. So I'm not looking forward to this. I got my drink right here, so let's just get to it. I mean, in all fairness, a good sequel is difficult to pull off. And I mean, not that it's impossible. I mean, the Aliens, Terminator 2. Yeah, that's all that I'm thinking of right now. I mean, those are the classic ones, obviously. But, you know, there's others. Two Towers. Two Towers was, I think, better than Fellowship of the Ring. Empire Strikes Back. I haven't seen this movie since I think it came out. Maybe. I mean, I bought the third one because I wanted to see it again because I felt like maybe I'm missing something, but this one I really haven't seen since I saw it in theaters. And I'm really curious, like now having the language to describe this kind of stuff, can I actually figure out what was it that just annoyed me to no end about these two sequels? I guess for starters, how did she see with the helmet and the sunglasses on? See, now, this shot is objectively cool. It's like, yeah, it's the bullet time, but they're doing something a little bit different with it. Or the particulate matter, like it's going off of several shots. I think my memories of how green The Matrix was, I think, come from these two movies. Because in the first one, the tint is there, but in this one, it's kind of like the blue tint in Underworld. Like, you can't not just kind of stare at it. See, this was actually kind of interesting. Like, they built him up the whole movie, the first Matrix, as being the savior, you know, the one who will liberate us. But the prophecy never went further than that. So I think it's actually kind of a neat deconstruction of that trope.
Sentinel for every man, woman, and child in Zion. That sounds exactly like the thinking of a machine to me.
How? How is that? You know, I wanted Agent Smith back as much as anybody, but they never really do explain how he's back. He just kind of is. It's just left really nebulous. That's probably the first thing that kind of annoyed me. Like, the first one had kind of a logic to it, you know, a weird Matrix logic, but you could kind of follow what was going on. You know, the powers were people bending the code and all these different things, but Smith is just back. I like that these two get a rematch in John Wick. Thinking about it, part of what made the first Matrix so good is that there was a lot happening. There's a lot of information, especially once you get out of the Matrix into the real world about what exactly is going on. But each of those pieces of information, every action scene conveyed part of the story. It moved it forward. It gave you a new piece of information. It showed you something new. Now, this first fight, so far so good. I mean, it's showing us how good Neo is compared to the agents, where just one agent was enough to send everybody running. He can take 3 of them on, no problem. Okay, and see, this is still actually pretty cool. Like they're using the technology that they've established exists in a way that makes sense. Like, make everything virtual. Why build a whole contraption to do this physically when you can just do it virtually? So far, so good. So, given what we know later that this is like, what, the 6th or 7th version of humanity that exists after the first Matrix was created, what is this place supposed to be? Is there... God, what is it? They're like 9 kilometers underground. Like, what was this place originally that they ended up coming here and kind of making it their home? So is it the whole ship just for the four of them? That was another thing that kind of like weirded me out. Like he didn't get another crew of anybody.
I know Morpheus hasn't filled the other crew positions except for you. Sure.
Which is weird that it's been like what, at least a year. Yeah, it's so weird because there was this big speech that Morpheus gave him when they first met about being master of your own fate, and yet Morpheus' entire personality after that point, in this movie and the sequel especially, came down to there's a prophecy. This is what we're supposed to do. Like it. This whole thing about free will, which I guess, you know, it is part of the theme. Like they profess to be, you know, on the side of freedom and free will, and yet they're basing all their decisions on a prophecy. Like, because it's impressive. It is massively impressive. But again, what was this place originally? I'm sure there's something in like one of the short stories or comic books that kind of explained it. See, this is also something that I thought could have really been played out a little bit more, like his doubt, the life of a prophet, a messiah, which really doesn't get played up except for maybe this scene and like maybe one or two other places if I can remember the movie correctly. But you know, I'm forgetting English right now. The imperfection of a human messiah, like it could have really played up in this whole theme of prophets and fate and belief and all these different things, but instead we get everything else in this movie. You know, somebody in the back is going, "Speak up!"
I think it was Blessed Are the Cheesemakers.
What's so special about the cheesemakers?
Well, obviously, it's not meant to be taken literally. It refers to any manufacturers of dairy products.
We are still here!
Even though, you know, we haven't actually faced 250,000 Sentinels before, digging past the defenses.
This is Zion, and we are not afraid!
So, Techno Orgy.
Some things do change.
Yeah, something's changed. Like, for example, what exactly is this scene adding to the narrative? Like, what does it add to the story? I mean, it adds that. I mean, we get to see Carrie-Anne Moss wearing that. So, there's that. See, something that also did not really get played up, which was kind of played up on the ship in the first movie, is like the life outside the Matrix. Like everything is obviously like steel and rock, and they said that it's cold and all these different things. But what is life in Zion like? Like, what is do they have to eat that same goop? Is there anything that's grown? You know, things like that. Part of what makes the scene kind of weird too is the music that's playing over it. Just the percussion already was giving it a very like bass, primal element to it, which was working, and then we get this little techno soundtrack playing at the same time, which is more of what you'd expect to hear in the Matrix, and it doesn't fit. It feels like a rave. Like I'm not getting the joy of being human and surviving and all these things. It just feels like a slow-mo rave. The music is just repetitive. I mean, not that electronic music can't be good, just in this particular instance, it's just it's that same like repetitive build-up. And you know, that's actually another thing that actually kind of annoyed me about this movie, or the sequels at least, is that the soundtrack turned almost entirely electronic. Like, we're done with the hard rock and the metal and the rap rock and all that stuff. It's just one genre, and it just feels so homogenous. It's okay. It happens to everybody once in a while. Not me, but you know, it happens to, you know, a lot of guys. Not me. That there's a good shot. I'll give it that. It's a good shot. Just the loneliness of it, but
so we need machines and they need us. Is that your point, Counselor? No point.
Yeah, kind of like the scene then. See, now the whole analogy of, oh, we're still plugged into these machines. Well, you're plugged into these machines because you quite literally need them to live. Like, nobody needs to be in the Matrix. So the analogy doesn't quite work. See, this is the other thing that it's very interesting. Just the idea that an agent can take over a human body like this. And it gets used for this scene, the cliffhanger,
Is something wrong?
and the fight in the third one. It could be a game changer. I mean, if Smith taught the other agents how to do this, or if he did it more. Why? Because things.
I had to be sure. Of what? That you are the one. Could have just asked. No, you do not truly know someone until you find them. Come.
Sure, I guess. But I mean, there's other ways you could have checked this. Like, literally 100 different ways you could have checked that.
I know you're not sleeping. We'll get to that. Why don't you come
She's
and
honestly one of the best things in this movie.
Because you didn't come here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to try to understand why you made it.
So, there is no actual choice. It's already been predetermined, is what you're saying. So there really is no actual choice. The whole point of this is that there is a choice to be made, but you just explained that there is no choice.
I know.
But why?
Shut up! Oh my god, I don't care! All we're doing is arguing about the most stupid shit! A rat, a scorpion, I don't care, man!
Again, this whole thing was started out as, you know, freeing yourself from a system. But the whole point of this conversation now is that all these choices have already been made. You've already made the choice. So, what's the point?
He disappeared some time ago. We cannot know
All right, and this is where the movie pretty much just turns into a video game. And not a good video game. Just a series of smaller quests that don't serve any purpose aside from just getting to the next point. For all the crap that's about to happen, that's a cool intro. However, did he just walk over that chain?
It is at this point irrelevant. What matters is that whatever happened for a reason.
Again, just completely gloss over it. Just
I killed you, Miss. So appearances can be deceiving.
there's a lot of talking and a lot of things that could be shown instead of told. And I think that's the biggest sin of this movie. It tells us a lot of things, but it doesn't actually show them. And if it does, it's much later in a much more obtuse way. Now, I'll give it this. The choreography here, when it actually is choreography and not that, like, rubber CGI, is pretty cool. Like, just coordinating this many people in and not using, like, those really quick cut shots is impressive. But let's consider what's actually going on here. Neo is fighting dozens of Agent Smiths. He managed to take on 3 of them, which means, what, that these are the unupgraded versions? What's the sense of danger here? Like, it's really just not getting mocked. Like, he's taking them on so easily that any sense of danger or tension is really not there. Yeah, I mean, he's basically a virus.
I'm now the most powerful virus in the arcade!
Great choreography, but at the same time, like, what am I going to be stressing out about here? Like, they're basically like, I don't know, like one hit point minions. And then we get to the rubber CGI sections, and there's just such a big clash between that and the live action versions where we're actually staying on them for several seconds. This CGI did not age that well. That's like when you need 200 of an enemy for it to be a threat. I mean, the same thing happens in a lot of zombie movies, but like this fight goes on for way too long for it to be like. We learned Smith can duplicate. We learned that Neo can take on literally dozens of them. But after that, like, what exactly are we getting from this that's advancing the plot? I'd like to point out that we're about halfway through the movie, and we know there's an army coming. We met with the Oracle. We've had 2 fight sequences.
Felt like I was back in that hallway.
And it kind of feels like we could have done all this in maybe 30 minutes.
Comprehension is not a requisite of cooperation.
It kind of is in a lot of
There's no need for
instances.
such an order. The captains at
You know,
present think
otherwise
that
it's just
themselves.
blind loyalty. I think the other thing that makes me frustrated with these movies is that The Matrix from this point forward kind of really does feel like a video game. Like, in the first one, there was an office building, there was an apartment, there was the rave scene, there were streets, you were outside. Like, it felt like the real world. This feels so completely unreal and detached from everything else. Not to mention that it's so just monochromatic. Like, everything from this point forward is just, it just feels flat. Like, the design of all this, like, it's green, black, and green, black. And then we get this scene with this jackass where he's saying a lot of stuff, and it's kind of relevant to the plot, but at the same time, it's just info dump.
Do you know why you are here?
Again, with this conversation that we already had in another scene.
Oh, yes.
Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
So do those with power actually have a choice then?
Why? No. What is it then?
Monica Bellucci was just wasted in these two movies.
Why and the reason are gone. And all that matters is the feeling.
No, the why is that you basically gave her a roofie cake. That's... I mean, this sounds really deep until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. There is no choice except what the powerful want you to think, but then that implies that the powerful have a choice in making the illusion of choice. Again, all of this is just telling. There's no showing of any of this.
Touch me, and that hand will never touch anything again.
The acting got a lot more wooden for everybody in this movie, even in the real world.
Are you certain the Oracle didn't say anything else?
Yes.
Maybe we did something wrong.
Or didn't do something.
Or maybe the script sucks. Have you considered that?
I am so sick and tired of this bullshit. On and on.
Yeah, you and me both.
Why don't you sample this instead?
This scene is so freaking stupid. Like, what? Like, this doesn't add anything to... It doesn't add anything to the narrative. It doesn't give us any new information. It doesn't advance the plot, except to kind of get them to the next point, which I think is the thing that really just annoys me about this movie and its sequel. The fact that things just happen to get us to the next point. Like, there's very little that... Let's not to mention that both Neo and Trinity's like reaction to this whole thing, it's so wooden.
Now, a wooden boy.
Handle us. You'll handle us. You know your predecessors have much more respect.
You know, that line's actually really quick to, like, it's easy to miss, but hearing it the first time, I do remember thinking, what do you mean predecessors? Like, who came before him? So that is a nice little bit of just foreshadowing. Now, let's consider the math here. A whole army of Smiths couldn't take him down. 3 agents barely posed a threat. So these guys aren't as dangerous as upgraded agents, because there's more than 3 of them. So again, like... Where's the threat? And when they actually do hurt him, it's like a cut on his hand. Barely. He caught the thing with his hand. Or he's going to. He hasn't done it yet.
You see, he's just a man.
Yeah, a man who stopped a blade with the side of his hand and is just kind of bleeding. Like, given everything that he can do, like, these fights should be over way more quickly. It's kind of like the first season of The Flash, where The Flash was not actually taking full advantage of his powers. He still didn't in a lot of cases, which was kind of infuriating. But still, again, with everything he can do, these fights should be over way more quickly. Every scene should serve a purpose. Every action scene should show us something new. What exactly is this one showing us? Again, that we haven't seen before. Like, it's a big melee fight. A lot of weapons. but it doesn't really add anything to what's going on. In fact, this was one of the points where I remember thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, what? Just get to what we're supposed to be doing. Like, there's a huge army heading down to Zion. Remember that? That was the whole point of us coming here to get this guy. The music is way more excited about this fight than I am. What did Morpheus pick up, a katana? See, no, this is actually kind of cool. Like, just that long shot of him fighting them and then phasing in and out. And the music keeps turning more and more techno. Now, see, the only reason I can think for this scene is to kind of show how Trinity and Morpheus have grown since the first movie, like taking on the agents and the twins and all this stuff. Plus, it's a different action scene than what we've seen before. We haven't had a chase sequence. So in that respect, this scene is actually doing something new and interesting. Now, does it actually pull it off well? See, now this is different. This is actually exciting. Where'd that car come from? I want to know how many layers of Kevlar this car has, because jeez. Again, see, this is exciting. Like, we haven't seen shots like this in a car chase. There's going to be one a little bit later that goes, I think, under one of the cars or something like that, if I remember the scene correctly. But overall, again, this is something we haven't seen before, and it's advancing. You know, it's showing us a little something about the Keymaker. He has, you know, he's prepared. He has all this other stuff. Kind of builds him as a character. Morpheus and Trinity, they get built up as characters here as well, because they're taking on, you know, agents. They're running. They're doing all these different things. Like, they get to be highlighted a little bit. Okay, that's the shot. Yeah, under the cars. Given all the stuff that we're saying about this scene and how good it is, at the same time, the music, again, is just that repetitive electronic score. Some of the motion blurring of this shot right here is a little wonky. Again, showing us Morpheus' growth. Like, he would never have just straight up gone against an agent like this in the first movie. I mean, he did, but, you know, he's actually kind of holding his own. Again, this running theme of, like, there's everything is a purpose, it's been predetermined, which completely goes against this idea of creating your own fate and bucking the system. Again, the main problem is this army heading down to Zion, but we don't see them. Like, we're... Oh God, what is this? It's like an hour 40 into the movie, and this is the first time we're seeing them.
But you'd have to take out a whole city block to kill the power to a building like that.
Not one, 27.
27 blocks.
I'm pretty sure you can cut the power to just a building.
How do you know all this?
I know because I must know. It's my purpose.
Again, it just feels so cheap. Like, I know because I know. I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. Like, the whole idea of choice and growth and all these different, you know, concepts is being just completely thrown out the window in favor of this is what the story demands. Like, it...
There are no accidents.
Yeah, there are. There's a pretty big one about to happen.
This night holds for each and every one of us the very meaning of our lives.
Well, you're wrong. Like, catastrophically wrong, but you know.
I can't help it, Morpheus. I can't help thinking, what if you're wrong?
He is wrong. He is seismically wrong. And then the end of this movie, just what pisses me off is that we just kind of get like a greatest hits montage. Yeah, just like these little cutscenes kind of showing us what happens and all these like just little things. The bridge breaking here, which is a Deus Ex Diabolus, if I've ever seen one. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely no choice was made there. It was just random accident of something that was foreshadowed literally 5 minutes before. It's just lazy. Don't they have anybody manning the guns or something like that? Like the crew cannot be that small. They had way more than that on the Nebuchadnezzar in the first movie. Again, we just got like this like montage of everything that was going to be happening, and now we're here. We didn't actually get to see any of it. Like, This movie dragged on so many scenes for so long, and then the final climactic heist, which is what it was, and we didn't even get to fully see it. And Smith knows about these corridors because, again, plot. Now, I'm a lot more familiar with the hardware side of computers. Software's not really been something that I've been getting into a lot, ever. A little bit. But as far as I understand, this is actually an actual real-life hack that she's doing. Like, it's an actual way that you would be able to get into something like this. So out of everything else, this movie just completely foobarred. They got that one thing right. Everything about this is completely counter to what the first movie was trying to say at the beginning, and then even in the first movie, just kind of like... I'd like to point out there's still 30 minutes left in this movie. And now we teleport to the info dumpiest of the info dumps. If this were a written story, this is where I would tell the student that just, what do you want to say? Let's just draft something else out, because... Again, this itself is actually a very interesting way of dealing with the whole idea of prophecy and things like that. The fact that everything has been plotted out, including the anomaly, this. It's interesting, but doesn't really ever get used to its full potential in the movie. And the movie is like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. I was too smart to see the answer. I have a whole lesson on clutter and simplicity and just being clear. And this guy, I mean, everything that he's saying, I understand. But at the same time, it's like listening to a VCR manual. Some of the viewers on this video probably have never read a VCR manual because you've probably never seen a VCR either. But let me assure you, this is what it would sound like.
Hey, everybody! An old man's talking!
Oh my God. I could read The Lord of the Rings in the time it takes this guy to explain something. Shut up, Colonel Sanders. Dear God. What exactly was the plan in Trinity's head here? Like, she's gonna jump. Where's she gonna go? Like, she's falling straight down. Like, I guess she could have tried to make it to the building across the street. I mean, she's made a jump like that before. So I'm guessing it's taking Trinity something like 57 minutes to fall 66 floors. If I'm doing the math in my head right. Why does her digital avatar have fillings in her teeth? I know the reason. You know, Carrie-Anne Moss herself has fillings in some of her top teeth, but it's kind of like how on Voyager, in certain scenes, you can actually see that Jerry Ryan had to take out some of the piercings in her ear. It's very hard to make out, but especially in some close-ups, you can actually tell that, you know, she has piercings in her ears. There's no reason why 7 of 9 would have piercings in her ears. I get that. Same reason that I know that there is... You know, there's a perfectly logical reason why Carrie-Anne Moss's character has fillings in her top teeth. But I'm at the point of this movie where so many things are just sort of dragging on that even something little like that is like all the CGI in this movie and you left that in. Again, this could make an incredible deconstruction of the Messiah archetype, but it really doesn't get used except at the very beginning and at the very end, and then we have like 2 hours of just fluff. This was actually a very unexpected twist the first time we saw it. The prevailing theory at the time was that he could do this because we're still in the Matrix. Like, you know, I realize it came out several years after, but it was a very Inception-like theory. Like, this, the real world, is another level of the Matrix, pretty much, which I think would have been a lot more interesting than what we got, because this is called the Matrix, but we spend so much time out of the Matrix and all the things that it was trying to do that it just kind of becomes this sort of generic adventure story.
You could use some rest.
Or a better script. And this would have been incredible if Bane had been on screen enough. And now we get something besides Techno. It would have been a much better like cliffhanger if Bane had been on screen for more than 45 seconds and we could remember him. Because I remember watching that and we were all racking our brains like, who is that? And I think we were halfway out of the movie theater when somebody actually pointed out, oh, it's Bane. It's the guy who was taken over by Agent Smith. All right, let's talk about it. This movie's a mess. I'm not going to say anything that I didn't already say in the last 2 hours and 20 minutes. Just, it's a mess. There's so many things that it could have done. There's so many themes that it could have pursued. And for a movie that was 2 hours and 20 minutes long, we were almost halfway through that before something actually affected the plot. There was just, it felt like, this movie feels like an excuse to show off the set and the special effects. Now, nothing wrong with wanting to show off special effects, but I would argue that it's a lot better when that is done in the service of actually moving the plot along, which this one, it felt like it just lacked focus. Like we had the machines are going to attack. Neo's the one. He's having doubts. Then we get Smith. He's back. Why is he here? The fuck knows? Like we never even got a proper explanation for that. Things just happen for the sake of happening. It's annoying. All right, I still am. Oh God, when this movie came out, like 2002, 2003. I am still annoyed watching it. I am not looking forward to the third one. I do remember the third one being slightly more digestible than this one, but I don't know. I stand my ground. This is not a good movie. It is far too long for what it's trying to do. It is just telling us info dump upon info dump upon info dump. It's not really building anything new for the bulk of its runtime. Well, here's to the third one. Let's go.